Welcome back to this Real America's Voice news break. I'm Terrence Bates. We appreciate you being here with us. We are getting ready for the next White House press briefing. It's starting the week off that way at the White House. Here's a live look at what you could expect. You can see the podium is empty. We're simply waiting for White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt to arrive. And then there will likely be lots of questions specifically about the situation in Venezuela. You may have heard that President Trump has shut down the airspace over Venezuela. He's also calling for Nicolas Maduro, the president of Venezuela, to leave or be removed. And so there will very likely be lots of questions about that. There may also be some questions about the holiday season there at the White House, as the White House Christmas tree is now officially up. And just a little while ago, the First Lady was at Joint Base Andrews giving out some of the gifts and helping to pack some of the gifts with the Red Cross there at Joint Base Andrews. You can see that here. She's working along with the Red Cross as well as the Second Lady, Usha Vance. They were both here at Joint Base Andrews just a little while ago, putting together gift baskets, and care packages for military members. So there will likely be questions about all of this once the White House press briefing starts in just a little bit. Of course, we'll take you there live. In the meantime, the man accused of shooting 2 National Guardsmen in Washington, D.C. and killing one of them should be arraigned as soon as today. He was shot and wounded during the incident and has been on a ventilator while recovering in the hospital. When he does finally answer to a judge during his first court appearance, the alleged killer will face a first-degree murder charge as well as an attempted murder charge. The second guardsman reportedly remains in critical condition. We do know that the suspect is an Afghan national who was allowed into the United States under the Biden-era Operation Allies Welcome program. He and his family fled their home country amid threats from the Taliban. In the meantime, funeral arrangements for 20-year-old Army Specialist Sarah Beckstrom are still being finalized at this moment. However, President Trump says he has spoken to her family and invited them to the White House when they're ready to come. He extended a similar invitation to the family of Air Force Staff Sergeant Andrew Wolf, who was also injured in that attack. That's a quick check of the headlines.
On air and on fire for the preservation of our nation. The Charlie Kirk Show.
All right, welcome back. We're going to have the great Heather MacDonald join us in just a second. But first, I want to tell you about our partners over at TikTok. Connection, open dialogue. These are the things that build communities. Charlie and TikTok shared in that knowledge. That's why TikTok has built a space where that kind of listening actually happens. People don't just post, they respond. They build on each other's ideas. You'll see a teacher simplifying a tough lesson until it clicks. You'll see a gardener sharing a trick that saved their crop. But what matters most isn't the video, it's what comes next. Someone asking a question, someone else answering with a story of their own. And suddenly, people who've never met become a community built on curiosity. When people listen and understand, a shift happens. Walls come down, ideas travel further, and connection, real connection, takes their place. That's what listening does. It reminds us that we're not all as different as we may think. And that's what makes TikTok so powerful. It's a place where every post can turn into a conversation, and every conversation can make a difference. Charlie had billions and billions of views on TikTok, and a lot of good things actually ended up happening out of that. Heather MacDonald joins us, the great Heather MacDonald. She is one of the, I think, the absolute experts on what would be like on merit-based culture, on incarceration rates, on crime statistics, and she's a contributing editor of the City Journal and author of When Race Trumps Merit. Heather MacDonald, welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much, Andrew, and thank you for carrying on the Turning Point USA legacy with such bravado and insights. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Heather. Well, I'm just so honored to have you. You're absolutely one of Charlie's most favorited guests ever, I think. There's not enough adjectives and superlatives to throw at you. You know he loved you, and your insights made a profound impact on this show and on Charlie's work and mission as well. And I hope you internalize that and know that, Heather.
I'm absolutely honored to know that. I wasn't aware, and so that means a huge amount to.
Oh yeah, I'll never forget. Actually, this is a fun story. when everything happened with the BLM riots, Charlie, we were sort of locked down still with COVID, and Charlie was like, we're going 5 days a week. So that was actually when the show first went to 5 days a week, was right after the COVID lockdowns. And you came on the show in those first few weeks and just dropped a ton of science on everybody about crime stats and how they were basically corrupt. And we wrote them all down, and we just started repeating them and repeating them and repeating them. And it became a major theme of the show in those early days. So thank you for your contribution then, Heather. So, Heather, I sent you 2 questions over the holiday weekend, and you wrote back very graciously pretty quickly. And this came off the back of this story in Chicago. The first question was, do we have an under-incarceration problem? And I was, of course, inspired by Lawrence Reed, who set a woman on fire. And then we find out there was 40 prior arrests, or maybe even 72. I'm seeing conflicting reporting there on just how many times this gentleman had been arrested. And, of course, there was the Irina Zarutska story out of Charlotte, who was stabbed to death, actually just before Charlie was assassinated. And it was a huge story then. And she was just doing public transportation. So 2 stories like this where we had multiple incarcerations. Do we have an under-incarceration problem, Heather MacDonald?
Yes, we absolutely do, Andrew. The criminal justice system is set up by our elites, values the freedom of criminals and deranged people over the safety of the law-abiding and the hardworking. Every one of these abominations was wholly predictable. These deranged maniacs who have taken the lives or nearly destroyed the lives of this poor woman who was chased around a subway with gasoline on her until the maniac was able to light her on fire. They all have long criminal histories. The quality of their criminal history suggests people that are absolutely in the realm of psychosis, schizophrenia. They were predictable, and yet they're back on the streets. Why? Because the overall theme in our criminal justice system for decades now, Andrew, has been we would rather not incarcerate the people who should be in prison than incarcerate criminals in a fair, law-abiding, constitutional manner, if doing so would have a disparate impact on Black criminals. And as a result, we are way under-incarcerating, we're decriminalizing, and the public officials who wink at these assaults are all complicit. The criminal liability does not rest exclusively on the criminals themselves. It is a statistical certainty. I'm here in New York. There are walking time bombs. Anybody can identify them visually. These deranged, lunatic drug addicts, predominantly Black, who are walking the streets, muttering, gesticulating on the subways, threatening people. It is a certainty that in the next week or two, somebody will be pushed or stabbed by one of these. And our politicians do everything but focusing on this. It's an abomination.
And, we talked at the end of last week, just the sort of, not just the cost of direct crime, but the cost on people, just the sense of disorder in our lives. I'm sure you've seen this where, for example, because we're so afraid to actually police these people, basic things, you see people jump turnstiles all the time in a lot of cities because they decide to not enforce that, or even really minor ones. The classic one that people will complain about all the time online is people who loudly play music or do other overtly, performatively disruptive things on public transportation.
But it's big. It's bigger than that too, because we've talked about on the show, Heather. It was another insight from Blake that crime has an impact on housing affordability because there's fewer and fewer neighborhoods that are acceptable to live in for families, and then they have to break the bank just to get into a neighborhood with a good school or that's not crime riddled, or that they have to worry about walking with a stroller on the sidewalk.
Or how many people just choose not to take a job where they might be the most qualified person, or where it might be where they're most productive because that job is in a dangerous part of the city, or it's in a city I just don't want to live because it's so unpleasant. There's so much friction in American life, and it all is downstream of we just refuse to let our cities be safe, orderly, clean, and pleasant.
Yes, and so
Well,
go ahead,
we
Heather.
just
Yes.
elected a socialist mayor in New York, and the sky is going to fall in. But one of his ridiculous planks was government-run grocery stores in every borough because allegedly we have a food affordability crisis. I'm very skeptical of the claim. But if we do, the problem is that stores move out because they can't handle the shoplifting. There was a Target that moved into East Harlem to great fanfare around 2015, I think, had exquisitely multicultural offerings, and it couldn't handle the retail theft, and so it left, and that happens again and again. So yes, crime affects cost of living, it affects insurance costs, but it is above all a psychic cost, and that, again, all of this is preventable. It's all preventable.
It's preventable by closing Rikers, right? Because I know he's promised to do that, right?
Right, exactly. We need more capacity. We certainly need more mental institutions. So it's not just a question of locking up the sort of pure criminal. It's also a question of locking up the deranged. If you combine mental illness and drug addiction, you have a very, very high rate of violence. Again, any politician who changes the subject after the burning of the Chicago woman, after the stabbing of Irina Zarutska, is complicit in murder.
So this is something else that because I was tweeting about this and I was seeing people's reaction, and one of the things that kept coming up repeatedly is that we actually have a capacity issue, and it struck me, Heather, that there has been I would say a propaganda war waged against the prison system. Right now, some of it there might be valid critiques embedded somewhere in there. Right, there might be grains of truth in this. But the prison system, all I ever see on Netflix is like, look at this terrible prison, how they treat people and all this. Meanwhile, they got cell phones and they got they're smoking cigarettes and all this stuff's going on. They can watch TV.
The number of prisoners who seem to have internet access is quite high.
They're coordinating like gang activity on the streets from some. Anyways, that's not the point. The point is that there have been a coordinated assault on the prison system. I don't think we build them anymore. I don't think we're expanding capacity. And so even if we wanted to arrest and throw away the key with some of these guys, we don't have enough space. Is this correct?
It's absolutely correct. Prison remains a lifetime achievement award for persistence in criminal offending. You have to work very hard as a criminal to get a prosecutor and a judge to agree on sending you away for a long time. Inevitably, people are given community services, probation. They're supposed to be monitored. And when they're out there without being incarcerated, they go on to commit more crimes. People don't stop all of a sudden. It would be great if we could rehabilitate people in the community. We don't know how to do it. The criminals are created by decades of poor parenting, the failure of socialization. And after they're arrested for their sixth robbery or assault, they don't suddenly stop offending. The thing that works is prisoner menopause. People age out of crime, but that's about the best thing you can do. So getting incapacitation is an absolute known virtue and success of the prison system. If we don't know how to keep people from reoffending in the community, my view is you don't get 2 bites of the apple, 3 bites of the apple. We've got to bring it down much. Again, the purpose of government is to protect the law-abiding. It's not to protect criminals. We have gone through a 300 or 180-degree sea change in the way our government officials think about themselves. They think about themselves as protecting the allegedly marginalized against that horrible majority. No, that's not their role. Their role is to protect people who respect the rights and lives of others so they can go about the glory of commerce, of self-actualization. We don't elect the government to be self-professed advocates for the criminals and the dysfunctional. That's not their role.
Heather, I think you're articulating this feeling of the upside down world that so many Americans feel like they live in so well and with such moral clarity. And this is why we love having you on the show. It does feel like the entire system somewhere along the line, the last 20, 30 years, tweak by tweak by tweak, became rigged against people that do the right thing, that wake up, that go to work, that shower before and after work, that send their kids to school, that pay their taxes and follow the law. Meanwhile, it's been tweaked in favor of these people that murder, Arena on the train or set people on fire. Who, by the way, you're talking about criminal menopause. That guy was like 50 and he was still doing this stuff. I guess he's still alive. Anyways. We're going to take a quick break. More with Heather MacDonald. We're going to talk about immigration and how that's affected crime, because that's a big talking point of the left. We'll be right back.